Hey folks, this is your host, Paul Winkler. Thank you for listening to the show today. Before we get into the content, I want to tell you about a new workshop I'm hosting called Politics and Portfolios: How to Invest During Election Season. You can register for it at paulwinkler.com/politics. A lot of people are worried about the market this year, and I want to help you know what to do. We're going to look at historical data and academic research to explain how markets behave in election years, and we'll use easy-to-read charts and graphs. I'll be live on Friday, February 23rd at 12 o'clock. But if you can't make it live, register anyway, and we'll send you a replay link, so go check it out at paulwinkler.com/politics. Now, here's your show.
Welcome to the Investor Coaching Show, a podcast to help you get an insider's view of the financial world and escape common investment traps. We look at the financial news of the day and help you make sense of it so you can relax about money. And here's your host, Paul Winkler.
All right, back here on the Investor Coaching Show. I'm Paul Winkler, talking the world of money and investing, and talking here with Ann Sawaski, hanging out here with me. The whole idea is just to keep the brain moving forward. Study for me is a huge thing. I constantly stay engaged in reading. That's one of my big things. But there's a purpose behind it. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about. We got this is a process that we bring people through. And I don't talk about this a whole lot, but I think we ought to talk about it more because I think it's really become popular. And I know you're like a huge proponent of the American Dream experience that we bring people through. And I love what you say is, you're like, this is something that you've had people go through and they can't wait to go. They tell friends about it, and then the friends are so fired up about it that they can't wait to go as well. But talk a little bit about, your experience of that and what it is.
Well, the American Dream experience it's the only transformational financial workshop in the world.
It is
only one.
It is literally, it is the only thing out there. And it's something that we have done, we've been working on for quite a long time, but it's an event, a 2-day event, and you're literally getting into your finances because people spend lots of time planning their vacations, but they literally spend almost no time planning the biggest vacation that they'll ever have, which is their retirement.
Right.
But also, they don't really think about, so often I find that people don't save enough for retirement. They're stressed about it. Mm-hmm. They're worried about money. They're not only worried about how do you invest and all that stuff. That's important, but they're also worried about finances because there is a lot to worry about. Well, when it comes down to it, because the news cycle is constantly making us nervous, but they're also worried that they're not going to have enough. And much of it has to do is because they don't really know how to handle their finances.
Well, and they don't
take time.
And I think that average person goes through life reacting. So reacting to your situation around you, and not looking at, okay, this is my plan for my life. This is my purpose. Mm-hmm. This is what I want my life to be like. And how do I get there? And if you look at it from the
basically
future,
stuff happens to them and then they figure out what to do. Oh my goodness, this just happened to me. Now what do I do? Versus going, no, I'm going to have a game plan.
Right.
And, for sure.
I mean, if you don't plan, it's like trying to get to LA from New York and you don't have a route. I don't know. A, are you going to get there? And B, are you going to get there in the most efficient and effective way? Or is it going to take you 2 years because you're winding through, Yeah,
it's like getting in your car and just driving whichever direction your car was facing. And
and then at the end, you go, gosh, I really wanted to get to LA and I ended up in El Paso, or I ended up getting to LA, but I got there after, this amount of time and spent a lot more money than I should have. And
you know what, you say that, what's really interesting, because a lot of you know that I do counseling. That's kind of my ministry that I love to do and love to work with people. And what I typically find with people is I tell them history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. So what we have a tendency to do is we do whatever our parents did.
Right.
And maybe you don't necessarily want what your parents got.
Right.
Maybe you want something different, and that takes a little bit of planning, because what we have a tendency to do, we were just talking about neurons just a second ago, but we have these things called mirror neurons, which is we tend to imitate behavior. You know, how my marriage looks is how my parents' marriage looked, just because, well, this is how you do it. This is how you raise kids. This is how you discipline kids. This is what kids are supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do. This is when you're supposed to retire. This is when you're supposed to take Social Security. This is how you invest your money. And, you know, matter of fact, it reminds me when I just said that statement, there was a person that I know that whose mother is ailing, and because his mother managed money a certain way, he almost feels like he's got to continue to do the same exact thing that she did.
That's true.
And the money management is really, really poor, actually.
Right. And, you know, actually, I could think of a couple that I know that are like that. Is the mother invested in real estate, so now that's what they're doing. Now, I think that's putting all your eggs in one basket, frankly.
And it's for some people it may be great, but for a lot of people that is not what you want to do, because that's not your skill set.
Right.
And also the real estate business is a very different thing than it used to be.
Right.
The level of competition
but I mean,
now, for
I guess the point is that we see things or are brought up in a certain way, and we think, because that's our deterministic screen, that's the way we look at life. Term for it. Yeah. That's the way we look at life.
Yeah, so the lens that you look at life through.
Yeah. So we don't always even see that if I take off that lens, I have a whole world. You know, the way I like to explain that is if you think about
well, I'm thinking about virtual reality as you're saying that. You know, I'm looking
that's
at,
a great,
you know, when you say that, it's like, what is on your screen?
Yeah, but I think about,
and it may not have been put there by you. You didn't determine what was in the goggles.
Well, right? I mean, you think about a fish underwater. The fish sees, I don't know, whatever's underwater, other fish, some water, some coral, whatever.
Yeah.
They have no idea there's something above the water.
Right.
So if they jump out of the water, they're going to go, whoa.
Hopefully they don't stay out of there, but because it's not going to last long.
But I mean, that's a classic example of seeing through a certain screen, and we all have our screens. And one of the exercises that you do in the American Dream Experience is try to look at money demons, things that didn't work in the past for you.
Yeah, things that we're worried about, we're nervous about, and we don't really examine it.
And maybe even how was I brought up?
I always love that exercise, Yeah,
I mean, it's a great tool to
Well,
to
it was
look
the
and
exercise
see.
that actually led to this radio show. It was literally the reason that this radio show exists is I went through that exercise.
Oh, really?
Yeah, years ago.
Okay.
And my belief was that the investment industry, once they learn some of the things that I teach here, that I've been teaching for over 20 years on this show, that they would change their ways and they would make mincemeat out of little Paul in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. Because that was my only office. I was in a 566 square foot office. And I had a friend of mine, he just set me straight, brought me through that exercise actually. And he brought me through the exercise and he said, here is what you believe. You have there are benefits you get from hanging on to that belief. And I won't spoil it by saying what it was, but he was dead on right. Oh my goodness. He was so right. And it was such a learning experience for me. And what happened was he always said, you're probably the most coachable person I've ever met in my life, because I always kind of felt like I didn't know everything. And I didn't want to have that ego when it came down to it. I always felt like there was something I could learn. And what he did is he brought me through that. And then he says, let's come up with a different game plan. And the different game plan says, no, I'll tell you the end part. The end part was, no, the investment industry has too much to gain or too much to lose by staying the way they are, too much to lose by changing. And they won't do it. And, the interesting thing is now looking back 22 years later, things are worse now in the investment industry, and they are better at hiding it than they used to be. which
Yes.
is, I think, is so interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, the American Dream experience makes you aware of all of these personal biases,
Yeah.
maybe familial biases, but also biases in the investment industry that you have to be on guard for. But then it also puts you through an exercise of what, where you want to be, what's your purpose for your life. If you're there with a spouse, you both go through the exercise and you'll be surprised. You may have the same purpose. You may have different purposes, but you're going to get out of there knowing and being on the same page with your spouse about what you want to do with your money and investing, because you're going to learn things in that exercise that are so valuable for your marriage.
And there may be conflict that you've got going on that you don't know why you have the conflict. Can't even figure it out. I don't know. I mean, we have these issues with money. She spends, I save, or I spend and she saves, and the issue is not that you're so different from each other. It's just you don't even know why you do what you do.
Right.
If you don't know why you do what you do, you can't make any kind of progress or changes or compromises.
Right.
Because you don't even know how to meet in the middle. So yeah, I think that's really good. So we're doing that workshop. It's in early April.
I think it's the 4th and 5th, Thursday and Friday, first Thursday and Friday of April.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I always tell people, it's 2 days, only 2 days out of your life to learn everything you need to know about money and investing to give you true peace of mind for the rest of your life. And if you're not a client of ours, you're going to have a side-by-side analysis of what you're doing right now.
Right.
You can compare it to academic Nobel Prize winning science investing. You can see, am I taking too much risk? Am I not taking enough risk? Am I diversified? Am I not diversified?
Well, I think it's key so you're not taking somebody else's word for it. Am I doing the right thing?
Right. So then you make your own mind up.
Yeah, you walk away and you feel like you objectively know. Because the reality is, and I always say this to people, my thing is that we often know the rules of investing. Mm-hmm. And I do this with everybody. I did with Matt Murphy and his wife. We went through this and I said, these are the rules. What are the rules of investing? And I have you tell me what they are. And then what happens is then I show them how the things that they're doing right now are against what they believe. And you have this cognitive dissonance is what we call it. Oh my goodness, what I'm doing does not line up with what I believe. And then you look at the difference between that versus what the academic research has said. We're very big on academic research because I don't want somebody that sells investments, mutual fund companies, investment firms, really guiding the process. When I make decisions, I want to know that it's backed by evidence-based research.
Right.
So I'm huge on that. So let's do this. Let's take, let's do a quick break because then we'll just talk real briefly about getting signed up. You can go to that. It's something we do. We don't charge for the people that go through it because we just want you to experience that. My thinking is you go through that experience over a couple of days, and that way it gives you the ability to kick the tires on what we do and how we do it. But and we have clients that bring their kids through it, and I want you to tell a couple stories because you've had a couple people that have gone through it.
Yeah.
We'll be back right after this. Thanks for tuning in to the Investor Coaching Podcast. Now, you may be one of these people that's been listening and realizing, wow, investing, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, and financial planning, tax laws constantly changing, and recognizing that maybe you might need some help in this area, but you don't want just anybody to help you out. So we have 10 offices in the Middle Tennessee area, and everything we do is fee only. We align our interests with your interests. So you can get an initial 15-minute phone call with any one of our offices just by going to paulwinkler.com/call. That's it. Every one of the offices is run by somebody with 20 plus years experience. They're all degreed planners. They all have academic backgrounds in investing, and you can get the help that you need. So if you want to set up a complimentary phone consultation, just go to paulwinkler.com/call. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Okay, so we were just talking a little bit about something we've got coming up in the first part of April, the Investor coaching part of our series that we do called the American Dream Experience, where we're really getting into a lot of things, purpose, how you handle money. And for a lot of people, they don't save enough and they can't figure out why. And quite often the reason has to do with they really don't have any kind of a roadmap.
Yeah.
And that's what's lacking. So one of the things that we get into is that, what's the roadmap? What's my purpose? What's really important to me? What do I want to accomplish? Get a husband and wife on the same page with each other.
Right.
And you've had friends go through it. Talk a little bit about some of your friends and family members that have gone through it.
Well, I have clients, friends, family members, and almost invariably, they are so glad they did it because they learned so much. They can, I always tell people.
You were telling me that somebody said, can I drag? I'm going to fill the workshop for you.
Yeah. I mean, I had a couple go through last year and now they wanted their adult kids to go through it.
Uh-huh.
And then they told a friend, the friend is dying to go through it.
Uh-huh.
And so she's like, oh, I'll help you fill it. I'll help you fill it. Because unfortunately, we had to cancel the February one because of weather.
Oh,
and
yeah.
all that.
Well, I remember we did one a little while back, and it was so cool. I remember this one girl that was at the back, and she started dreaming about what she could do. Young girl.
Right. That was one of my clients.
Was that? I remember her just dreaming about, and then she made decisions as to where she was going to live.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. That was really cool.
Yeah. That was kind of a failure to launch situation. And she started seeing beyond her situation, which was, that kind of, whenever you have purpose, doesn't it give you hope, right? Because when you're able to,
it's so funny because one of the things that I was thinking about finding some kind of a plaque.
Uh-huh.
I was literally the phrase that I was going to have on the plaque, because I love stuff like this, is hope is always appropriate.
Right.
Because you think about that when we're encouraging somebody, we're giving them hope, when we're walking people through something that's difficult and they don't know what to do, and you're giving and you're encouraging them that they can do more than they think they can do.
Right.
It's always appropriate. So it's funny you say that. That just hit me when you made that comment.
So to me, I find that very exciting when we can actually help people see beyond what they're not able to see on their own and come up with a plan so they can have hope and they can achieve this thing. And, because I think the worst thing you want to do is, whenever the end of your life is, get to the end and go, oh my gosh, I made millions of dollars and I didn't really do anything.
Nothing to show for it.
Yeah. What I didn't accomplish anything I really wanted to accomplish. And that's not a place we want our clients to be, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that reminds me of Eric Erickson, was a psychologist that had these 8 stages of life.
Yeah. And
the 8th stage of life was integrity versus despair.
Right.
So, we go through life and we go walking through and not really thinking about it or planning, and you can end up in that situation. So I think that's really, really appropriate.
Yeah. So I think it's just and I always tell people it's a problem solving 2 days. It's hands-on. So we try to find areas that you feel you have doubts, you have questions, hasn't worked for you in the past. What can we do to fix it? It's very hands-on. It's not just some boring thing you sit through.
So the way to check that out, we have on our website, paulwinkler.com. You can go there and then look into that. Then get in contact with us and say, hey, that's something I'm interested in checking out. And it's a fun couple of day event. Like I said, it's we're holding that in
Murfreesboro.
In Murfreesboro's one. Is that the next one? Is it going to be Murfreesboro?
Yes. Yeah. And you know what? If you're already a client, talk to your advisor, because they can sign you up. If you're not a client, you can click through on the website or give us a ring and sign up that way. And then we'll get you an advisor to work with at the event. So
it's interesting you say that, Ann, because years ago when I first started the company, I actually had a lot of time on my hands because, you're starting a business and you got lots of time and you're trying to get things going. And I would bring a lot of these exercises that we're doing at this. And this is not run by me. We have people in the firm, Ira and Evan, and there's another guy that comes in and helps us out with that. But basically, these are exercises that I have walked people through for years. In my early days of starting the company, I would run people through this, and I would charge $550 a quarter. No joke.
Yeah.
And I would not even take somebody on as a client unless they went through this. It was highly inefficient because I was doing it all one-on-one with people.
Yeah.
It was really inefficient. But what I found with that was I had people that went through that process that became just absolute advocates for what we do and life-changing things. And I'm hesitating because I want to tell stories, but I don't have the permission to tell the stories on things that I had seen. I ought to get people's permission to tell some of these stories because I remember one guy that was in a business. I'm just going to say a business, be very, very broad, miserable. He would fall asleep in meetings that I had with him, and it wasn't me. But he was overworked.
Yeah.
He was stressed out. He didn't like his partners. And I'm being very, very vague on this thing purposely. If he heard me saying, he's talking about me. I know it. This guy, he's still a client to this day. But what happened was I went through these exercises, and he got out, moved out into the middle of nowhere. No joke. He and his wife started working at a different institution than he was working at, to be really vague. Was as happy as I ever had seen him. Then moved to another place, at a little bigger place, was incredibly happy, and every time I see him, he is like a little kid, but now in his 80s.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and you have, I over and over again at the American Dream Experience, you see amazing things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen everything from proposals of marriage to people stand up and say, I'm going to quit my job, and start a business. Or I'm going to start this new charity that I've always wanted to do. I mean, because when you find purpose, your purpose will lead you in different directions. The idea of the purpose is for you to get excited about your life and your future so that you want to do it, right? So that's why the purpose is so important, because it helps you guide and discipline yourself to keep on track with what you really should be doing is, I really want to do this thing. I want to help.
Gives you a reason to get up.
Whatever.
Yeah, it gives you a reason to get up.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Paul Winkler. Hope you enjoyed today's edition of the Investor Coaching Show. You want to learn more about what we do, go to our website, paulwinkler.com. You can watch some of the videos there, and if you're not already a client, you can set up a free initial consultation. Until next time, I'm Paul Winkler, reminding you that I believe that more educated investors are more confident investors, and confident investors are more successful investors. Have a great one. Advisory services offered through Paul Winkler, Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Paul Winkler, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation.